All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we are diving headfirst into some pretty groundbreaking stuff.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about President Trump's executive order on, well, everything digital assets.
And believe me, we've done our homework.
Articles, official White House stuff, legal analysis.
The whole 9 yards to really break down what this all means for the future of, well, money as we know it.
And what's really interesting is how this executive order is basically a complete 180 from the previous administration.
It's like a hard reset on, what, years of pretty cautious policy, right?
Yeah. I mean, remember all the talk under the Biden administration, all that focus on consumer protection and, the risks of crypto.
Yeah, I felt like every other headline was about the potential dangers.
Right. It really started with Biden's executive order back in 2022, and it basically laid the groundwork for a whole wave of stricter regulations.
And then there was that Treasury Department framework. What's it called?
The Framework for International Engagement.
Right. And that was all about trying to get everyone on the same page globally about how to, control this whole crypto thing.
Exactly. And then, of course, you can't forget those lawsuits against Coinbase and Binance.
Oh, yeah. Those sent shockwaves through the industry. It felt like the government was drawing a line in the sand.
Definitely created a climate of uncertainty.
Big time. But then entered Trump with this campaign promise to make the U.S., what was it, the crypto capital of the planet?
Yep, that was the slogan. And this executive order, signed just yesterday, looks like his first big move to make good on that promise.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase. What does this executive order actually do?
Well, it's got a pretty ambitious title: Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology.
Okay, that sounds big.
It is. The core goal is to, like the title says, make the U.S. the top dog in the digital asset economy, and they're not wasting any time.
How so?
This order straight up revokes Biden's previous executive order.
Yeah.
And the Treasury framework. Gone.
Wow. Talk about a clean slate.
Right. It's a total reset for crypto regulation.
So reading between the lines, it sounds like the Trump administration is putting a lot of faith in the private sector to really push innovation in this whole crypto space.
100%. And to kind of steer all this, one of the most interesting parts of this executive order is the creation of this group, the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets.
Okay, Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets. What, are they like the crypto Avengers or something? Who's on this team?
Well, leading the charge is David Sachs, the White House. Get this, AI and crypto czar.
The what?
AI and crypto czar.
That's a title.
It's a sign of the times, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
So what's this czar's background?
Oh, he's got serious street cred. I mean, he was at PayPal way back when, founded some successful companies, the whole Silicon Valley thing.
Okay, so we've got a tech and finance heavyweight calling the shots.
Yeah.
But he can't do it alone, right?
Oh, of course not. This working group is stacked. You've got people from the Treasury, the SEC, and all kinds of other agencies, plus experts from the private sector, too.
So they're trying to get a good mix of perspectives.
Definitely. But they've got their work cut out for them.
I bet. What's the plan?
Okay, so first things first, all the government agencies have just 30 days to identify all the existing regulations that even touch on digital assets.
30 days. That's not much time.
Nope. And then after that, they have another 60 days to decide whether each of those regulations should be, scrapped, changed, or kept.
Talk about a fast turnaround.
It's a whirlwind. But that's not all. The working group itself has just 180 days to give a full report to the president with their actual, regulatory and legislative proposals.
So it sounds like things are about to get very real very fast.
Oh, yeah. No more kicking the can down the road. This administration is ready to put its stamp on the crypto world.
And speaking of putting a stamp on things, we have to talk about that CBDC ban. That seems like a pretty big statement.
It is. By saying no U.S. agency can create, issue, or even promote a central bank digital currency, the administration is making their stance crystal clear.
So, in other words, they're saying the future of digital finance is in the hands of, the private sector.
Exactly. They're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to this whole crypto capital of the world idea.
Makes sense. But for those of us who haven't gone down the crypto rabbit hole, what exactly is a CBDC? And why is banning it such a big deal?
A CBDC is basically a digital version of, say, the U.S. dollar, but it's issued and backed directly by the central bank, like the Federal Reserve.
So instead of your money being managed by a bank, it's managed by the government.
Right. So by banning CBDCs, the administration is saying they trust the free market more than the government to develop and regulate digital currencies.
Okay, so this is all sounding very pro-crypto, which is a huge change from how things were just a couple of years ago. But is the industry actually buying it?
Oh, yeah. In fact, on the same day that the executive order was signed, the SEC did something pretty significant. They rescinded this accounting guidance that had basically discouraged companies from holding crypto assets.
So they're making it easier for companies to get into the crypto game.
Exactly. It's a huge win for the industry and a pretty clear sign that the government is serious about changing its tune.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got a new administration, a bold executive order, a powerful working group, and a clear timeline for action. It's safe to say the U.S. crypto landscape just got a major makeover.
Yeah, and we're just getting started.
Right. This is just the beginning.
There are a lot of questions about how this will actually play out in the real world, but one thing's for sure, the U.S. is now all in on this global race for digital asset dominance.
All right, so we've set the stage, but now let's really get into the weeds. What are some of the key specifics in this executive order, and what do they mean for, well, everyone? The crypto industry, investors, regular people like you and me.
Let's start with one area where the executive order is demanding action right now. Stablecoins.
Okay, stablecoins. For those of us who are still wrapping our heads around Bitcoin, can you break down what stablecoins are and why they're so important?
Sure. Stablecoins are basically cryptocurrencies that are designed to, well, stay stable in value. They're usually pegged to something like the US dollar.
So they're kind of like a bridge between the wild world of crypto and, the stability of traditional money.
Exactly. You get the benefits of digital currency, speed, efficiency, global reach, but without the crazy price swings.
Okay, that makes sense. But if they're pegged to the dollar, why do we need to regulate them?
Well, the thing is, there's not a clear definition of what a stablecoin actually is. There are all sorts of different structures and ways they try to stay stable, and that complexity has made it tough for regulators to come up with a one-size-fits-all approach.
So it's not as simple as just saying, here's what a stablecoin is, and here are the rules.
Nope. And that's where this working group comes in. One of their big tasks is to come up with a clear definition of stablecoins and then figure out a regulatory framework that actually addresses their unique features and potential risks.
Sounds like a pretty tall order.
It is, but at least they're taking it seriously.
So what's the crypto community's take on all this? Are they happy with this new direction?
I'd say, by and large, yeah. A lot of industry leaders are calling this executive order a sea change in U.S. digital asset policy.
Sea change? That sounds pretty dramatic.
It is. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism that this new regulatory framework will really unlock the potential of the crypto industry and help it grow responsibly.
Okay, so can you give us some concrete examples of what these industry folks are actually saying?
Sure. Nathan McCauley, the CEO of Anchorage Digital, said this executive order, and I quote, marks a sea change in U.S. digital asset policy.
Okay, so he's definitely on board. Anyone else?
Michael Levine, the CFO of Fireblocks, which is a blockchain security company, said the administration is signaling a commitment to economic liberty and fostering trust in blockchain-based solutions.
Right, so there's definitely a lot of positive buzz. But I'm guessing there's still some cautious optimism.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, we don't know the actual details of these new regulations yet.
Of course. There are still a lot of questions about how this will all play out, but at least now there's this feeling that the government is actually listening to the industry and trying to create regulations that actually make sense.
So it's kind of like the Wild West days of crypto are coming to an end.
In a way, yeah.
And that could be a good thing, right? For everyone.
Potentially, yeah. More stability, more clarity, more opportunity. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the main points of Trump's executive order, the potential good and bad that could come from it, and the bigger picture of what this means for the U.S. and the global economy. But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't really touched on yet. How all of this might affect you, the listener. How could these changes actually touch your life, your finances, and your future?
That's the question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. So stay tuned.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, but now I really want to get into the nitty-gritty. How could this executive order actually change things for, the average person out there?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the struggles crypto companies have had with traditional banks.
You mean all that debanking stuff you hear about?
Yeah,
Where banks basically refuse to work with crypto companies.
exactly. It's been a huge roadblock for the industry. Trying to build a business without access to basic banking services, it's like trying to run a marathon with your shoelaces tied together.
Not exactly a recipe for success.
Right. But this executive order actually addresses that directly. It basically mandates that banks have to provide services to legitimate crypto companies.
So it's leveling the playing field, in a way,
Yeah.
giving crypto companies the same access to financial services as any other business.
Exactly. And that's a win not just for the companies themselves, but potentially for consumers too.
How so?
Well, think about it. If crypto businesses can operate more freely, we could see more innovation, lower transaction costs, maybe even entirely new financial products and services that benefit everyone.
Okay, so it's not just about ideological support for crypto. There could be some real tangible benefits for folks down the line. But this executive order also mentions something called a national digital asset stockpile. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's an idea that's generating a lot of buzz and some controversy too. Essentially, it would mean the U.S. government holding a reserve of cryptocurrencies, much like they hold gold or foreign currencies.
Interesting. What would be the purpose of that? Is it like a backup plan in case the dollar collapses or something?
That's one argument you hear. Some folks believe that having a digital asset stockpile could help stabilize the U.S. dollar, especially as other countries start exploring their own central bank digital currencies.
So it's kind of a way to hedge their bets, making sure the U.S. stays relevant in a world where digital currencies are becoming more prominent.
Right. Others see it as a way to give the U.S. more leverage in international trade and finance. As more and more transactions happen digitally, having a significant stockpile of crypto could be a strategic advantage.
But wouldn't that also come with risks? I mean, the crypto market is notoriously volatile. Couldn't the government lose a lot of money? Things take a downturn?
That's a valid concern, and it's something the working group will have to weigh carefully. There are also concerns that it could give the government too much control over the crypto space, potentially stifling innovation and undermining the whole decentralized nature of these technologies.
It's a tough balancing act. They want to be prepared for a future where digital assets are central to the global economy, but they also don't want to overstep and create unintended consequences.
Exactly, and that tension really highlights the larger geopolitical implications of this whole thing. For a while now, the U.S. has been lagging behind other countries, especially in Asia and Europe, when it comes to embracing digital assets.
So this executive order is a way for the U.S. to catch up and reassert itself as a leader in financial innovation.
That's a big part of it. The U.S. doesn't want to be left behind as the world moves towards a more digital future. They want to be at the forefront, setting the standards and shaping the rules of this new financial landscape.
That makes sense. But how does all this high-level stuff actually translate into real-world impacts for, the average American?
Well, for one thing, a more supportive regulatory environment could lead to more investment in the U.S. crypto industry, which could create jobs and boost the economy.
Always a good thing. And could it also make it easier for everyday people to actually use crypto in their daily lives?
Potentially, yes. We could see more businesses accepting crypto as payment, making it more convenient for consumers. We could also see new financial products and services built on blockchain technology, offering potentially lower fees and faster transactions.
So maybe one day I could buy my groceries with Bitcoin, or even pay my taxes with Ethereum.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. But it's important to remember that, like with any new technology, there are potential risks as well as benefits.
Right, like the volatility you mentioned earlier. And what about security? As more people start using crypto, doesn't that make them more vulnerable to hackers and scams?
Those are legitimate concerns, and they shouldn't be taken lightly. Consumer protection and security are absolutely essential as crypto becomes more mainstream. Education is going to be crucial. People need to understand how to protect themselves, how to spot scams, and how to manage the risks involved.
It's a whole new world to navigate, and it's changing so fast. So we've talked about the potential benefits and risks for the average American. But what about the reactions to this executive order overall? How are different groups responding to these changes?
Well, the responses have been about as diverse as the potential impacts themselves. The crypto industry, of course, is thrilled. They see this as a major victory, a validation that their work is legitimate and important.
It's like they've finally been heard after years of pushing for a more favorable regulatory environment.
Exactly. And that enthusiasm is reflected in the markets, too. We've seen a surge in the value of many cryptocurrencies since the executive order was announced. Investors are definitely betting on a bright future for crypto in the U.S.
But what about the traditional financial sector? Are banks and other institutions welcoming these changes with open arms?
It's a mixed bag. Some are still pretty wary of cryptocurrencies, viewing them as a potential threat to their existing business models. But others are starting to see the potential and are exploring ways to integrate crypto into their operations.
So some are embracing the change, while others are taking a more cautious wait-and-see approach.
Exactly. And then there's the general public. Most people are still trying to figure out what all this means for their lives. There's a lot of curiosity, some excitement, but also a fair amount of confusion.
It's a complex topic, and it can be hard to keep up with all the twists and turns. But one thing's for sure. This is a conversation that's only going to get bigger and more important in the years to come.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another crucial group, the policymakers themselves. They're the ones who are ultimately going to shape the future of this industry, and their views on crypto are just as diverse as those of the general public.
So we've got some policymakers who are really gung-ho about crypto's potential, and others who are more skeptical, focused on the risks.
Precisely. And finding the right balance between fostering innovation and protecting consumers is going to be key. It's a tough challenge, and there's no easy answer.
Sounds like we're just at the beginning of a long and complicated road.
We are. But it's a journey worth taking. The potential benefits of blockchain technology and digital currencies are enormous. And the U.S. has a real chance to be a leader in shaping this new financial world.
So we've talked about the potential impacts, the reactions from different groups, and the challenges facing policymakers. But at the end of the day, this all comes back to you, the listener. How do you make sense of all this information? How do you decide what this means for your own life and your own financial future?
That's the question we'll be tackling in the final part of our deep dive. We'll break down what you need to know, what questions you should be asking, and what steps you can take to navigate this exciting and rapidly evolving landscape.
Okay, so we've dug deep into President Trump's executive order, and we've talked about, how it could shake things up across the economy, even globally. But let's get down to what matters most. What does it all mean for, the person listening to this right now?
That's the question everyone wants answered, right? How will all this crypto stuff actually change our lives?
Exactly. So let's try to imagine this. You're going about your day, grabbing coffee, scrolling through the news on your phone. How could this crypto revolution actually, show up in your world?
Well, picture this. You walk into your favorite coffee shop, and there's a sign that says, Bitcoin accepted here. As crypto becomes more common, partly because of these clearer regulations, more businesses might start taking it as payment.
Whoa. So my morning latte could be fueled by Bitcoin. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It could happen. And it's not just about spending either. Think about investing. As the U.S. becomes more crypto-friendly, it could draw in more innovation, which could lead to whole new investment opportunities, things you might not have even considered before.
So instead of just hearing about people making a fortune off Bitcoin, I could actually, get in on the action.
Exactly. And what about your bank account? As traditional financial institutions adapt to this new landscape, we might see them offering new products and services, lower fees, faster transactions, maybe even better interest rates.
Okay, now you're talking my language. That's something I definitely want to keep an eye on. But let's be real. Every coin has two sides, right? What about the downsides, the risks involved?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's crucial to be aware of those. Volatility is a big one. Crypto markets are famous for those huge price swings. Even with stablecoins trying to, stay stable, there are no guarantees.
So, like with any investment, there's the potential to win big, but also to lose big.
Precisely. And then there's the security issue. As more people get into crypto, it becomes a bigger target for hackers and scammers.
That makes sense. So it's more important than ever to, do your research, learn how to protect yourself, and be really careful where you put your money.
Couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power, especially in a field that's changing as fast as this one. Take your time, learn the basics, and don't make decisions based on fear or, that feeling of I'm missing out.
Solid advice. Okay, so we've looked at the potential upsides, potential downsides, but here's what I'm really curious about. What does all this mean for the future of money itself? Are we on the brink of some kind of financial revolution?
Ah, the million-dollar question. Nobody can predict the future for sure, but we can say this executive order is a major push towards something new. It's like dropping a huge rock into a still pond. The ripples are going to spread far and wide.
And those ripples could completely change how we think about money, value, even how we govern ourselves. It's a real challenge to the traditional financial system, which relies on, trusting central authorities like governments and banks.
Right. Crypto works on a decentralized network where trust is built into the technology itself, not in institutions. That's a huge shift in power.
Whoa, this is getting pretty deep. It's like we're watching a whole new way of thinking about finance take shape. But here's what I'm wondering. If this is a revolution brewing, what can I, the individual, actually do? What's my role in all of this?
That's a fantastic question, and it brings us right back to you, the listener. The future of finance really comes down to the choices each of us makes. Do we embrace these new technologies and see what they can do? Or do we stick with the old ways?
It's like we're at a fork in the road, and each of us gets to decide which path to take.
Exactly. And those individual choices, together, are what will shape the kind of financial system we build. Will it be more inclusive, more equitable, more decentralized, or will we just end up with the same old power structures and the same old problems?
So it's not just about understanding the tech, but also about really thinking about the values, the principles we want to see in this new financial world. That's a lot to consider.
It is, but they're important conversations to have. The future of finance is being written right now, and your voice matters.
That's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into President Trump's executive order on digital assets, I want to leave you with one final thought. What do you think this all means for the future of finance? What role do you want to play in shaping this new world? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep learning